on one simple reason, and that is that we give a more plausible, a more tangible, and more realistic way of a view of the status quo. And let me expand on that more in my points. First, I will uphold on my case for talking about social harms and economical harms, and then I will refute the arguments presented by the opposition in their speech in that order. Social harms. A. Team Morocco claimed that storm tourism turned poverty into entertainment, and how Team Sweden responded to that was that the companies actually asked the residents on what to show. But we would like to say that that is a completely false claim. These slum tours and these slum tours are operated in public areas. Therefore, these companies do not have the obligation to ask anyone on what to show. Provided that these slum tourism companies offer a safari-like experience when they pack a lot of tourists in a 4x4 vehicle and make them rush through these slums, snapping pictures of these residents as if they were animals. Meaning that these tourists do not even get to interact and understand the tourism and the poverty in these areas. All they get to do is go around and snap pictures of them. And so we believe that that is unethical and immoral because we believe that the slum tourism was ideally designed to make tourists understand the slums and understand the poverty there. But we believe that the big corporations' fault, not the tourists' fault, the big corporations market it as a really bad thing, and that is what the big issue is. Moving on, they said that the tourist mentality is what matters, and that the tourists can spend beaches, but they would rather spend it because of their compassion to poverty. Well, as we pointed out, most tourists do this to feel better about themselves. And they cannot feel better about themselves going to beaches when they see really muscular guys or really fit people with their money and perfect tans. They can feel better about themselves when they see that poor people who cannot afford food and they can. And so that is what we're trying to explain, and that is the more realistic way of viewing this, that tourists do it to feel better about themselves. Moving on, they said that slum residents are very happy. And I would like to ask you, judges, how can a person be happy if you invade their privacy, if you exploit their poverty, and if you turn their lives into a safari parks, into an animal zoo? And that is what we are trying to say. Slum residents are not very happy, and as a Kenyan activist, which is actually live near to a slum in Kenya, said whenever they click their cameras, the people feel that they have lost their dignity. And that is the reality of things, ladies and gentlemen. Moving on to number 2, the economical harms that were refuted by Team Sweden. We said that big corporations don't give back to slums, and Team Sweden said, one example, reality tours give 80% back to the slums. Well, you know what? We are talking about doing more harm than good. We have presented evidence that 82% of slum tour companies are run by for-profit corporations. For-profit, meaning they are profit maximizers. They will not give back to the slums because they do not have an obligation to. And we know big corporations do this because we know how the real world operates. Any big corporation will say it as a marketing scheme. And what do they say? They say that these companies do claim they give back to slums. But are we going to believe them? Because if we were to believe advertisements, then every shampoo in the world is the #1 shampoo. And as we know, these slum tour companies claim they give back to these slum residents, but there's no proof of it. And the realistic way is that the companies are corporations and they are profit maximizers, not charitable organizations. Moving on to the second argument presented for economic harms, they said that tourists want to invest and want to buy from these vendors outside. And we agree to that. But these tour companies do not allow them because they just run by in the safari 4x4s and do not allow them to interact or buy anything because they consider it dangerous. So these big corporations are not only not giving to them, but they prevent tourists from giving to them. They prevent the common man from selling one artifact that would allow him to provide food for his family. They provide the common man for having a chance of survival, and if that is not unethical, I don't know what is. Moving on to the other example. As I said, corporations do not give back, and corporations do not allow the tourists to purchase. Therefore, it is unethical and immoral. Now, let us move on to the opposition's case. They said that they hire local tour guides. One, as we said, they're profit maximizers, and they will not hire local tour guides. And even if they were to hire local tour guides, that is one guide for a whole slum. one guy for a whole slum, which populations get to slums over hundreds of thousands of people. If they hire one employee to actually tell people about the slums, what have these slums gained? One person can feed a family, let's say 10 families, but thousands are still dying. Thousands are still not able to survive. And that, of course, is why the government should win. Moving on. They said that they build infrastructures. Yes, sir.
Is that one person being hired not a benefit coming from the slum tourist organization that still doesn't exist under your model? How are you helping anyone under your model?
How we're helping anyone with our model? We are not saying that we are helping this one. In fact, we have to prove that it does more harm than good, and we have proven that slum tourism only does harm, and even if the good is present, it is very minimal, it is very menial, and it does not help the most slums. And we give a majority count, we give statistics, tobacco claims, and the government should win. Moving on, they said that they built infrastructure, and they gave one example of Colombia, someone building a road in Colombia. One, if they have good enough roads that their 4x4s will go through, these companies will not build their roads because they have nothing in it for them. And we have also said that these companies will actually destroy the infrastructure presence, because when these 4x4s run through the mud and destroy everything they go on, they will not even leave the residents with the infrastructure, the basic, very basic infrastructure they already have. They will destroy the utilities in the slums. And why would they build something that already is there? It is not to maximize profits, therefore big corporations will not do it. Moving on, they said that individuals will be employed. As we said, these two corporations are profit maximizers. They are not charitable organizations, and even if they do, they will give one person per organization. And then they said that organizations are in collaboration with charitable organizations. And we have Leo. Leo is a man of the age of 46, and he is the president of Rosinia's Community Association. And he claims that if any slum tourism, he dares any slum tour corporation to tell the people how they are helped. Because as we have seen, he is the president of this association, and they have received absolutely no help from anyone. No help at all. They say that they feel it is unfair that their lives are put on display and they do not receive one dime for it. Not one dime, ladies and gentlemen. And so I would like to conclude. If we believe that big corporations have the right to bully slum residents just because they are poor, vote for opposition. If we believe big corporations are actually for charity, vote for the opposition. But if we want to face reality, if we want to see the harms done by these slum tours, they are much greater, much more substantial, much more significant than whatever the opposition has the good to offer. And therefore, we beg the judges to vote for the government. Thank you.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'd like to thank you all for being here. Slum tourism does more harm than good. This is what we are arguing today. Our main theme is that slum tourism allows big companies to negatively exploit the slum residents. First of all, I will address our case, the arguments against our case. Next, I will move on to the opposition's case. And lastly, I will address their so-called plan that will save the world. First of all, they address our case in about 3 or 4 main points. But the main idea was that it falsely characterizes slum tourism. First of all, we do not falsely characterize slum tourism because slum tourism is what it is, ladies and gentlemen. Slum tourism indignifies people, and it is a main way to objectify people. Thomas Hobbes, in his book Rights of Man, says that there is an inherent dignity to all people. We find this in religion, we find this in every country in the world, and we find this all over. So, by allowing slum tourism to occur, we do not falsely characterize slum tourism, because by allowing slum tourism to occur, these people are going into these touristic areas for slum tourism. Not only look at the people as lesser than them, but they look at people as objects. They look at people as some place where you can go and take pictures and take them back to your host country and just show other people. Now moving on to their second argument in this. They said that by paying for tickets allow them to give back to the community. I would like to say, first of all, this isn't reality, ladies and gentlemen. We have to face the fact. Paying for a ticket, most of the money will go to the company, which clearly supports our cause, that the companies are the ones making money. Paying for a ticket is not going to solve anything either. Watching poor people go about their daily lives is not going to solve anything, ladies and gentlemen. And that is what I have to say here. That we do not falsely characterize slum tourism because we have clearly pointed out why in it dignifies people, why it demoralizes them, and why it does not help them at all. Moving on to their third argument, they said that they're asking permission for the people. They're asking permission to go into the slums, and they're asking permission so this makes it socially acceptable. Well, I'd like to say, judges and ladies and gentlemen, asking for permission to go and watch poor people go about their daily life is unethical and should not be done. Ladies and gentlemen, if someone is in their home and you just peep in like this, oh, what are you doing? Oh, you're sitting on the floor. Oh, ladies and gentlemen, this is not okay. Ladies and gentlemen, I don't understand how team opposition can just think that this is okay. I'm very uncomfortable with the idea of wealthy tourists paying money to look at poor people. I'm very uncomfortable with wealthy tourists going around poor people because this demoralizes them, and this is unethical, immoral, and should not be done. I've addressed our case. I've addressed the points of the social points of our case. Now I'll move on to the economic points. The economic points of our case were that this only benefits big companies, and it hurts the slums both directly and indirectly. First of all, they keep on saying that the companies give back. Ladies and gentlemen, this is not the case, but this is only a marketing scheme. As my partner has said, every shampoo in the world says number one shampoo, number one shampoo, number one shampoo. Well, not all of them can be number one shampoos, ladies and gentlemen. Yes.
80% of reality profits go to the people. They invest in schools, they create schools. Is that not a benefit?
That is one company out of thousands and thousands and thousands of companies. A Yale study of humanities has clearly said that 82% of slum touristic companies are for-profit companies. This is coming from a credible source, ladies and gentlemen. So why do we have to keep on repeating this when this is facts, this is logic, ladies and gentlemen? Continuing my economic points. Companies only do this as a marketing scheme. They do not help anyone, ladies and gentlemen. They have failed to show how this isn't a marketing scheme. They have failed to show how the big picture of this is that companies, the majority of companies, want to help. Thus, this isn't reality, ladies and gentlemen. They're only providing us with one example, and this one example is false and should not be taken into consideration. Moving on to the opposition team's case. Now, the opposition team's case pretty much tried to refute our case and incorporate a new plan. And I would like to address this point by point. First point is that Reality Tours is a big organization in South Africa and Peru, and they are trying to help people. First of all, ladies and gentlemen, one company is not going to be the big difference here. We're not facing reality, we're not facing the facts, ladies and gentlemen. If one company out of a million companies does something, that's like if I, for example, pour a drop of water into the ocean.
So,
it's not going to affect anything. Yes, sir.
Is this not better than doing nothing?
This is better than doing something, ladies and gentlemen, but this moves me on to my next point. This is not a long-term solution. This is only a short-term solution, ladies and gentlemen. This indeed does more harm than good, and this is why I'm going to explain to you right now. What I mean by short-term solution is that, yes, maybe they're going to host some fundraisers, maybe they're going to have some donations, but in the long term, this is not going to solve the big problem, the big issue, which is poverty, which is slum tourism as a whole. This indignifies people. This is immoral, unethical, and should not be done. So if we think that one company is going to do some harm, some good, this is not a long-term solution. We're not going to be solving the big picture. We're not looking at the big picture, ladies and gentlemen. And what I want you to do is just face the facts, face reality that what they're doing is going to cause more harm than good. What they're doing is not going to solve it in the long run. What we are doing is going to prevent them from. It's going to prevent the people and the slums from actually feeling the harm that is directed towards them. Moving on to their second point in the opposition case, they said that organizations create new roads, infrastructure, etc. My partner clearly said that this is not the case. I will clearly state that one more time. This is not the case. I've clearly stated that one, most companies, which are 82% of companies, are for-profit companies. Two, for-profit companies only want to maximize profits. 3, they do not need to build roads when they already have cars that can go through the mud, such as 4x4s. They have the infrastructure for that. So 5, they're not going to be doing anything to help the poor slums. No, thank you. So this new roads idea is a false claim that is only done maybe by one company or no companies at all. And this false claim is only directed to you, the judges, so you will vote for them because, oh, they're providing one beneficial thing that is happening. But we are showing you how this probable beneficial thing not only does not help, but it only leads to more exploitation, negative exploitation by the companies. Moving on to the third point in their case, they said that Reality Tours tries to employ and help the people. I would like to say, ladies and gentlemen, judges, Reality Tours might employ 10 people and 100 people. But how many people live in the slums of Brazil? How many people live in the slums of India? How many people live in the slums in Africa? Millions, hundreds of thousands of people living there. So 10 families fed is is not solving the big problem. 10 families fed is not a long-term solution to what we are talking about today. Yes, we agree that 10 people being fed is better than no one being fed. However, we do not agree that this is a solution to poverty and solution to slums, which moves me on to my next point and final point. They brought up a new case and talking about how this will cause a utopia here on Earth and it will solve poverty, etc. First of all, this will not. They said that the media, NGOs, etc., in cooperation with the locals, will raise awareness and will help the slums. First of all, everyone is aware that slum tourism is going on. Everyone aware is that there are slums in today's world. However, awareness does not solve the problem. Awareness does not solve the issue. Awareness does not solve poverty. Awareness does not solve slums. Donations from small percentages in the world, a small percentage of people in the world is not going to solve the big picture here, ladies and gentlemen. What I'm asking you is to face the facts, face reality. The majority of the people are not going to be donating. The majority of the people are actually going to these slums for negative exploitation, which moves me back to my main theme. Negative exploitation occurs more than the possible benefits that are occurring. So, ladies and gentlemen, I've clearly pointed out to you guys why we should be winning the case here. This is because negative exploitation outweighs the positive impacts of maybe what the opposition team is trying to do. It dignifies, objectifies, and it is very unethical and immoral for people to go and watch the war. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for listening to my speech, and I'm very proud today